Oh my God, I can't get around which I love that theme song so much. In case you can tell, that came from my dear friend Aaron Robertson. So thankful to him for that. Follow him on Twitter, and you can get your own theme songs or own music or whatever you want to do. He's a really great talented musician. It doesn't matter. I mean, it matters. But I want to say thank you guys for tuning in today. It is 4 p.m. on the East Coast of New York. Well, East Coast and New York. But I'm really excited to be tuning in today with our interview day. As you see a little scrolly bar down there. And we're going to have a good one today. If you haven't been here before, this is MarkTalk. It's a show that I host 4-ish days a week on my YouTube channel. And you guys can sign in, press like on the button on the things down there. I can't even talk to you. This is going to be a really fun conversation. Thank God I'm my guests. But you can subscribe. I want to say thank you to the 150 plus subscribers we got now. Working our way to being able to be monetarily helped and all that stuff. It is what it is. But you're not here to hear me talk about things. You can like all that stuff. I see likes are coming in. You can help in many different ways. But what matters most is we are here today with a really good friend of mine, like an actual real friend of mine. Also, fun fact, the first person I ever cheered for in Sequester, the first game I ever watched, that's for sure. Really good dude. You know him from RHAP. He hosts This Week in Survivor History. You know him from his Twitter. You know him from his Yankee fandom. You know him. You love him. Also, you might know him because of Stone Creek with the Mafia games. The one, the only, Jordan Kalish. You're muted now, Jordan.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I hear you now.
Okay, how's it going, Mark?
It's going good.
That was almost like a T-Bird introduction. I loved it. I learned some new things about myself. I didn't know that I was the first person you cheered for in Sequester, and I'm sorry I let you down.
I wouldn't say you let me down at all. I mean, you came in sixth in that game.
Sixth, after being the second person voted out, but we don't like to talk about that.
We don't talk about that part. But no. I mean, yeah, there were a lot of people I was cheering for in that game, but you're a friend of mine, and I always cheer for friends first before anything else. So,
yeah,
and you did good.
I mean, it was a lot of fun. It feels like, it almost feels like it was either a week ago or about 3 years ago, depending on the day, because of how weird time's gone during the pandemic. But it was a great time, and also I've always been very close with a lot of people within the RHAP community. But I think from that game, there are so many people who I know so much better now than I did going into it. And I think the pandemic, even though it's rough, it's sort of brought me closer with a lot of people who don't actually live in New York, and I get to see them remotely. I
mean, that's one of the things I love the most about when I get a chance to do the Mafia games with everyone. Like Liska is someone that I adore, and we see her twice a year on average.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's people that I never had any idea exist, like Arjun and both Tommy, all those people, and it's just really cool seeing that's one of the things I actually have enjoyed about this year, the people that I've met because of being stuck in my room.
Yeah, it's been obviously 99 or 999 out of 1,000 things about this pandemic are negative, not great. But you have to find that one thing that at least that you could hold on to and say that this has been a productive, going on 9 months.
Yeah. How are you on this disgusting rainy day in New York? I imagine it's rainy up by you in the Bronx.
Well, it's a day off. As you know, I'm a teacher, and it's Veterans Day. So first of all, shout out to all the veterans who I don't know if any veterans are listening, but I'm sure whoever's listening knows a veteran. And this is, we should be thankful for them every day for serving the country. But if any veterans are listening, a special shout out to you on Veterans Day. But I was because of that, I was off today. I have been teaching remotely anyway, so it's not like I would have left my apartment if I were working. But I certainly would not have been coaching cross country today. That would have been canceled.
I mean, it's disgusting outside. It's really pitch black, and it's 4 o'clock, and normally happens in an hour. It's
it's it's gonna start. I hate when it gets dark so early. Yeah. I think we should. Here's one of my hot takes. I don't even know how hot of a take it is. I think this whole daylight savings time, we should always be on daylight savings time. There's no reason to move the clock back in the winter. I think that as a society, and Arizona does it, by the way. I'm pretty sure Arizona is the only state that does it. And a lot of, most countries around the world don't change the clock. there's no reason. Like, I think it's based on like antiquated agricultural technology that we needed to move the clocks in the winter. We should always have the extra hour of light. Give us a second extra hour.
It made sense 300 years ago, but it doesn't make sense anymore. So.
That's my other hot take. If we could get rid of those two things, I think we'd be all right.
Yeah. But you know what? We're here. I'm happy to talk to you. Anything I get to talk to you is happy. Like, I always get happy whenever I randomly get a phone call from you. Like, oh my God, I get to talk to Jordan. Like, it's like that weird thing of like, you're one of those few friends. I got a lot of friends like that. Like, where I'm like, oh my God, I get to talk to them. But like, it's just always a good, fun thing whenever I get to talk to you. And I'm really happy to have you here.
Yeah. And should we talk about how we met for the first time?
Yeah, let's do that.
Because I had seen you before, like we had like
we crossed paths
across each other, but we didn't know each other.
We both have been to Zeke's parties for Survivor before.
Yeah,
but we didn't really know each other till
we didn't know each other. I remembered like when we did actually meet for the first time, I was like, oh, I've seen that beard somewhere. So we had actually, this was the day after a Survivor Know-It-Alls, which is Survivor. I'm sure if you're listening to this, you know what a live Know-It-Alls is. Rob Cesternino and Stephen Fishback do a live show every Survivor season when there's not a pandemic. Usually in New York City, sometimes in other places as well. And this was the day after the live Know-It-Alls show. Me, a big group of RHAP patrons went to Outback Steakhouse because that was the season where Outback was one of the sponsors, and we decided to go try Thunder from Down Under drinks and mediocre steaks at Outback. They do have great mac and cheese. I love Outback's mac and cheese. I've actually tried to make it like them, and I can never get it quite right. But anyway, after Outback, there was a show hosted by our friends Jared Laxer and Naomi Calhoun, which was Outwit, Outplay, Out, Laugh. Yes, yeah. Outwit, Outplay, Out, Laugh, which is a Survivor live comedy show, which you were playing in.
Yes, I was.
Did you get voted out that night? I think you did. I think you may have got voted out that night. That
seems possible.
Or maybe that was the next, because you played 2 seasons.
That was the next.
Right? I know I've seen you get
voted. My first season, I never got voted out, and I do maintain the theory I would have won if the season completed. And I've talked to Jerry about this theory. It makes total sense because even though I might have been the most strategic, I was definitely doing things that would not have made the jury angry, which would have happened very, very soon if other people in that cast got their way.
So I know from just to deviate from this story, I know from playing 10-minute sequester against you, going against you in the finals with the jury is not.
Pod Question Mini.
In the Pod Question Mini, yes, you did beat me in the finals. But anyway, yeah. So yeah, this was the first season of Outwit, Outplay, Out, Laugh. So you were not voted out that night. Somebody else was. I don't remember who. But anyway, after the show, I think it was probably Naomi who introduced us. I would assume Naomi.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and you had said that you were a fan of the podcast, and I thought you were very funny in that show. So it was sort of like a mutual fandom at that point, and we've been friends ever since.
Yeah, and I'm thankful for it. You're definitely my friend that's the closest to me of all the RHAP podcasters, and I mean. That says a lot considering I was on a team with Mike Bloom for improv for a while, who's going to probably be a future guest on here soon too. So
I don't think I knew that actually.
Yeah, me and Mike Bloom. I knew Mike Bloom before I knew that he did Survivor stuff, and he was doing Survivor stuff while this was happening. Mm-hmm. I just wasn't into RHAP yet at that point. I think I found out that he did he was a Survivor person at Zeke's watch party for season 30, the big one in the bar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was not. I don't think I was at that one actually.
It was the season premiere for Millennials versus Gen X.
Yeah, I wasn't.
But it was literally when I found out that Mike Bloom was a big Survivor person. Mm-hmm. So yeah, but
that's cool.
Yeah,
I can imagine that he was a good person to have on your improv team.
Oh, he was. Well, it was a really good team. It was a really diversely comedic team. Not the most diverse in diversity's sake, but diverse comedically was a very strong thing for that team. Mm-hmm. A lot of different kinds of senses of humor and a lot of yes-anding happening, which is the most important thing really when you think about it.
Yes, I've heard that's the only thing I know about improv, that the yes and is a big thing that you need to do. But it's not just saying yes and then end. You have to follow it up with something funny, which is where the magic happens.
And you do pretty well when you have to like play along with like Rob and other people in Twitch. So, I mean, and I think you're fucking hilarious. That's all I know.
Thank you. And likewise, Mark. There's a reason why I like hanging out with you.
Oh, thank you. I'm blushing. You can't tell underneath the beard. The beard will be going trimmed soon for those that are curious, because I have a job interview next week. Yay. But I want to ask, like, what's it like growing up in the Bronx?
So I didn't grow up in the Bronx. I live in the Bronx. I grew up in Westchester County, which is a suburb of New York City. And I would say growing up there was it was a very nice way to grow up. It was kind of like, upper middle class, or middle class. I don't know exactly what you would call it, but yeah. I was very comfortable my whole childhood. I had a lot of very close friends, a lot of my very close friends. And I would say there wasn't too much, not too much adversity really to overcome growing up, except for the fact that my parents got divorced when I was a teenager, but I think that was for the best. I like to quote a George Costanza line. I'm not some people are a product of their parents getting divorced. I might be a product of my parents staying together too long. They should have done it earlier. I think they knew. They've been new. But anyway, I love where I grew up. I coach currently at a school like 5 minutes from where I used to live, and I coach baseball and cross country and basketball. So that's where I grew up. But now I do live in the Bronx. I live in Riverdale, which is actually like my street is 2 blocks away from Westchester County, like 2 blocks from Yonkers, which is where I didn't live in Yonkers, but that is part of Westchester County where I used to live. So I've always sort of lived within like the same 15-mile radius, essentially, or 20-mile radius.
That's cool.
Yeah, but, and I like where I live. I like Riverdale. I like the fact that it's close to the city, but it's also close to Westchester, where my family is from and where I coach. So it's a nice. It's kind of like the best of both worlds.
Yeah. What? This is such a weird question to ask, but were you athletic as a kid?
I would say I was like pretty good at sports. Like I was probably better than average. Not when I was really little. When I was like in like probably kindergarten through 2nd grade, from what I remember of like gym class, and I'm a phys ed teacher now, and then Little League, my first year in like 1st grade, I was probably towards the bottom half of athletes, like in my grade at school or on my Little League team. But I always really liked sports. So I think I sort of pushed myself. I was sort of I was strong. Like I wasn't super coordinated, but I was always like kind of strong as a kid. So I think that helped me. And I'm also very competitive. So I was always sort of able to push myself, and I took practice very seriously. So I would say up until like 3rd grade, I was definitely a below average athlete. And then once I started playing more baseball, and I had some really good, like Little League coaches aren't necessarily known for being the best baseball coaches because it's usually somebody's dad. But I got lucky in that my friend's dad, who was the coach, was also a very good. He had coached, I think, high school baseball at some point when he was younger, and he knew what he was doing. So I really like my swing got better. I had a very good throwing arm. So I was good at the sports that I played, but in terms of like being like a great athlete, I'm not fast. I'm not incredibly agile. Like, I mean, I was pretty good at like, I played football and I was pretty good at that, even though I started in 9th grade, which is late. But I was good at the sports that I played. I wouldn't say I was necessarily like an amazing athlete or anything, but in these fake survivor games that I like to play, I have done pretty well in the challenges. I think I'm good at balance. I think maybe that's what it is. Yeah,
I'm actually pretty good at balance. But like most of our people, I'm terrible at sports. I'm like the most athletic. I'm not athletic at all. Like, but I'm very, very competitive. Yeah, as you know, like I take things serious. But like I'm a terrible athlete. Like, I remember I was in Temple Bethlehem basketball league, and I scored probably 4 points in 3 years, and 2 of those points were for the other team. And that's a very real sad fact.
Yeah, so you're like you're the Stephen Fishback of your Temple ball league.
Basically, like I remember being like in 4th grade, I got the ball and I dribbled the wrong way. I got really excited and dribbled the wrong way, and then scored like a very close 2-pointer.
See, in basketball, I was not a scorer either. I did the same thing. I played rec basketball. I played Temple basketball. We call it Jew ball. My role on that team. So in my green, like in my town league,
Yeah.
I was like average height at best. In my Temple league, I was one of the taller kids. It was amazing. It's the only time, like, that's one of the things I like about if I ever do go to Temple. It's I feel tall in that crowd, just like I feel tall when I'm with my family. But I was like the rebounder on my team. I played center and power forward. I was not tall,
center. Wow.
Well, I mean, yeah, I
was power forward,
except when Mark, our starting center was Ben Barber, who's a friend of mine, who's very tall. So when he was in, I played power forward, and that was like we were the two rebounders. We left the scoring for everybody else. Once in a while, I'd hit a layup, but I was not a good shooter. I'm probably a better shooter now than I was back then because I work in a gym, and sometimes when I have no class, I'll just like shoot threes. And if I get into a rhythm, I could hit a couple in a row, but I'm not a good shooter at all.
So you're saying Ben had a growth spurt before you did, because Ben's like our height. Like, because
Ben,
because you're a little shorter than me, and Ben's about my height.
Yeah, I'm like 5'9.5". I round up to 5'10". Don't tell people, but
I'm 6-ish.
Yeah,
like 6, taller than 6, but not 6'1". But I call myself 6'1".
Yeah, so Ben is like 6'3", and when he was a kid, he wasn't 6'3", but he was a tall kid, and I feel like he peaked. He also not peaked, but he got tall very early. So he was, I mean, the height that I am now is probably the height that he was in like 5th or 6th grade.
Yeah. Okay. That's cool. So I want to like transition because I'm really curious. Like, when did you start like watching Survivor?
I started watching Survivor, the premiere of Survivor Australian Outback, so season 2.
Nice.
Yeah.
And were you in love with it like immediately? Like, I'm shocked you didn't watch it at all when the first season, when like everyone was watching the first season.
So the first season, for most of it, I was at sleepaway camp, and
it was summer, yeah.
So I wasn't home. I think my parents maybe watched the last couple episodes, and they knew from those episodes that I was gonna like it. And I think everyone in the country basically at some point caught on. I'm very happy that I didn't watch the last couple episodes. I'll tell you a funny story about my first time watching Survivor Borneo.
Yeah.
But for my parents knew I was gonna like Survivor, so it was after the Super Bowl. I believe it was the Super Bowl where the Giants lost to the Ravens, but I'm not sure about that. But anyway, after the game, my parents let me stay up a little bit later than my bedtime, and we watched Survivor. I had no idea what it was. I thought when they were going to tribal council that someone was going to like fall off the bridge and die. But
I thought someone was going to die too. And like when I was like, I remember watching Borneo. I was the day one like Survivor watcher, and I'm like, someone's going to die on this show. And then no one died. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Well,
continue.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
But anyway, Deb Eaton got voted off, and it was like, this is such a cool show. Not only did it have challenges which were fun to watch, and I think it was probably more into the challenges back then than I am now. But I still think they're incredible, and even though it's not my focus when I watch the show, a lot of them are still really fun to watch. It was just like, I don't know if I understood the strategic game at that point, but I knew there was strategy going on, and I liked that. And then also there was the survival element too, where I'm not a camper. I'm not really an outdoorsy person. I mean, I like being outside, but not necessarily in the woods. But it was cool to watch these people like in Australia when the kangaroos hopping around and koalas and stuff. So I kind of fell in love immediately. And I would say my penchant for remembering things that happened in Survivor and remembering all the cast members started around the time when the season was over. I could have rattled off the names of every single contestant on season 2, right during the season when it was over. And then at each new season, I remember being in middle school, like at school, going on, I don't know, I guess it was the CBS site, and there were different games that you could play with like using the different survivors' faces.
Yes,
and
I remember this a little bit, yeah.
I always like memorized every single person who was on each season, like each subsequent season. So that's sort of where like my, I guess, Survivor trivia knowledge started.
I remember, I want to talk about this because I never ever talked about this. I had the PC game that they made like after season 1, but it was like of season 1. And I remember finding it so hard and so weird, being like,
I heard it's terrible.
I remember I liked it, but I was so anti Richard Hatch and Stu Hawk from watching the show that I believe I probably was Jervis or Colleen, who were by far my favorite two people on the show. So, but yeah. What were you going to say before I cut you off there?
So the first time I watched Survivor Borneo, because obviously I started with Australia, which is why I probably have more nostalgia for Australia than I do for Borneo, even though Borneo was really the first season.
Yeah.
I didn't know who won. I remember hearing what I thought was a spoiler that, and I don't even remember who said it, that the old guy won. So I was watching the whole season, and it was when I was homesick from school for like 2 weeks. I had like the flu or something, like I don't know, COVID-10 or whatever. I don't know what it was, but anyway, it was my mom's friend who had taped all of the episodes on VHS, and I was watching the VHS tapes at home. My mom was home, and we watched it together. And my mom knew who won, but she knew, like was under the impression that the old guy wins. So of course I think it's Rudy, because Rudy's by far the old guy. Richard Hatch was one of the older guys on that season, but
he was like final, 40 and everyone else was like 30.
Yeah. And then Rudy's like 72. Yeah. So I'm watching the season, and I love Rudy, and I love Richard too. Like I love that, like the Rudy Richard Sue alliance. Kelly, take or leave her, but those three were my favorite on the season. I also loved Greg and Colleen as everyone, and Jervis. Yeah. It's a great cast. But anyway, when Rudy loses the final immunity and Kelly wins, I'm like, okay, I know who wins the season. She's voting Richard out. Rudy's going to win the season. Like that vote was revealed, and she voted out Rudy. It's the most surprised I've ever been watching an episode of Survivor, because I went from thinking that I was spoiled to actually having been spoiled on the wrong person.
So this was this like right after right after that season? I
believe it was between Africa and Marquesas.
Okay.
So it was like the third, or maybe potentially between Marquesas and Thailand, but I think I saw it before I saw Marquesas.
Okay. And like you became like a obsessed with Survivor person from then on, right?
Yeah, I was obsessed probably from the first episode that I watched.
How did you meet Rob Cesternino? Because like I'm curious how you got involved in RHAP and all that stuff.
Rob Cesternino, he was someone who I was a big fan of on season 6 when he was on the Amazon.
He was incredible on Amazon.
Yeah, and I also really was a fan of his like 4 seconds on All Stars. And then like years later, I was in college. It was like 2009. And I was rewatching a lot of Survivor seasons. I had rewatched some of them before, but I did like a whole series rewatch. At that point, it was like, I think it was in the middle of Survivor Samoa or something. Yeah. So I was doing this full rewatch, and I was like, you know what? These survivors are kind of regular people. I bet a lot of them are on Facebook. So I started like searching people, and it's kind of creepy sounding, but I started searching people who had been on Survivor on Facebook, and I see that, and I was basically adding like friend requesting my favorites. And Rob Cesternino was one of them. He was an incredibly funny character on the show, very strategic player, really, Survivor Hall of Famer. So he was one of the people that I friend requested. He accepted it, and as did a lot of people who I friend requested. And I saw one day that he posted a link to a podcast that he was doing. I don't think I'd ever even listened to it. I knew what a podcast was, but I don't think I had ever even listened to a podcast before. So at the time, it was him, and it was his fiance Nicole Palmieri, who's now his wife Nicole Cesternino. And I started listening, and I was like, "This is great. This is like someone who I watched on the show, who's a big strategy nerd, and he's funny." And I really enjoyed listening, and I started listening to every single Survivor podcast he would put out. I remember he was. This was around now, like when I first friend requested him, it was Samoa, but now it's Heroes versus Villains when I started listening to the podcast. Yeah. And he's recapping every episode and talking to other former survivors. So I was hooked on that, and through listening, I started listening. Then he started podcasting about the Celebrity Apprentice as well, which I was watching, and I don't know what the host of that show has been up to lately, but I don't think anything good. But anyway,
I hear he's a homebody. That's all I've heard.
Yeah, I hear he's getting evicted soon. But anyway, I started blogging. I would comment on I would comment a lot on the website for the Celebrity Apprentice and for Survivor episodes, and like it was always cool when he would like read my comments on the podcast, and like kind of through that, I don't remember exactly how it happened, but I started writing a Celebrity Apprentice blog. I sort of got tired of that and asked if I could do a Survivor blog, and I pitched the This Week in Survivor History concept and started as a blog, and now it's a podcast.
like, how much research goes into this into our history? Like,
so I would say it's like a couple hours a week. It's not a crazy amount, but it definitely takes time, because the first thing I usually do is I'll go on the Wikipedia page for all of the like, if it's an even number Survivor season, either the even number or odd number Survivor seasons, and I'll look at like the summary of the episode, and then I'll remember like if that's an episode that I want to do, I'll sort of start it, and then usually when I decide what episodes I want to do, I'll watch the episode, or at least parts of the episode. Once something comes up that I want to write a question about, I'll either write the question, or I'll sort of write a couple notes of what I might want the question to be. Then I double check it against my old notes, my old questions, because I don't want to repeat questions. I did that once, right, where I essentially wrote the same question with almost the same wording and used it for the same guest, which was Will from America, completely random. Yeah. And he got the question both times. So it's a couple hours a week, and it depends on the week. Sometimes I watch a full episode and I'm like, you know what, there's really nothing there to write a question about. So it could take, anywhere from like, I would say at the very least like 2 hours to write all the questions, and at the most like 4.5. But then I procrastinate so much. Like I'll start watching a Survivor episode and I'll have my question or two from that episode, but it's my favorite show. So I'll watch to the end and then pick another episode. Yeah.
I want to ask this question that my friend Mark Hallman asks. Any great behind the scenes stories from Twitch?
I'm sure there are. Let me think of the best behind the scenes.
Because like, those that don't know,
most of Twitch happens in front of the scenes, where like we get on the Skype call, and we record. I know that like through going to some of the Survivor Know-It-Alls events and other Survivor events in New York City, I've met people who have become guests. Like Zeke is someone who I met in person, and I know you know him as well. Yeah. And because of that relationship I formed with him, I asked him if he wanted to be a guest on the show, and it was awesome when he said yes, because he's kind of a legendary Survivor player. Yeah. So Adam Klein is another one who I met in person, formed a little relationship, and then he's someone who became a guest. So I would say the best behind the scenes stuff is usually when I meet like a Survivor in person. And Andrea Belke, another one. After I played Survivor with her and voted her out, I had asked her actually at the after party of the Survivor game at the bar if she wanted to be a guest on This Week in Survivor History, and she was. I never thought she'd say yes, but she was nice enough to come on and take the quiz against Rob.
I mean, for those that don't know, it's a very hard quiz. Like I've been tempted to be like, I wanted to, but I'm like, I'm not good enough with like trivia for Survivor, like to even stand a chance. Because I know Rob knows his shit, and I know you know your shit more than Rob. And I'm just like, there's no way I'd stand a chance at all of getting more than one question right.
It's purposefully very difficult because, if I asked like Survivor bar trivia questions, which would be like, who won this season or who came in this place on a season? First of all, I don't think it's as interesting for a podcast. And then also like every single person is going to know the answer. The guests that I bring on, for like 99% of the guests know who won every season. Like I can't ask like just regular run of the mill Survivor trivia. I have to really get in the weeds. But my thing is like my parameters for each question is that I don't necessarily, it's not always a question that I knew the answer to 100% before watching it. Like at a certain point I knew the answer, and maybe watching the episode jogged my memory. But whenever I ask a question, I ask myself, could I have possibly gotten this right? And if the answer is yes, I put it in. If the answer is no, I table it or I change the question.
Talking about people that have done This Week in Survivor, I'm going to ask you some questions now that have been submitted. Our friend Laura F. Dean asks, "Who's your favorite person from the Mafia group?"
It's a tie between Laura and Mark.
Oh, that's nice. So for those who don't know, we before the pandemic, a group of us would watch Survivor almost every week at this great bar called Stone Creek, which unfortunately doesn't exist anymore because pandemic. And then we would watch Survivor and then play Mafia. And it's also become a thing where like it's happened a couple of times where RHAP hosts Patron Mafia, which I hope returns, but I don't know if it will. You would have a better idea than I would. Is it returning?
We've had conversations about it. Like I could see it coming back, and it's if you're a patron of Rob Has a Podcast, you could either watch or participate on the Facebook group. But it's not set, nothing set in stone. But I could see it, in the near future coming back. I wouldn't be shocked.
That's good. I mean, I want to play. I played once, but I only played for like 10 seconds when I played. But I enjoyed it. So I'll get some more questions because this is an important thing in our lives right now. Liska Savage asks, when are we in the Seeds Baby merch? Give people what they want. So for those that don't know, Jordan appeared on Rob and Akiva Need a Podcast and had that as a question because we all appreciate a good bagel and there were not enough seeds on that bagel.
Yeah. So the backstory for that is that when I was on our friend Puya's Twitch stream.
Oh, Puya's, yeah.
Puya's Zavakili. So I was on his Twitch stream. We were doing a tier list Tuesday where we ranked bagels. And I anyone watching this who hasn't checked out Puya's stream, it's Puyaism on Twitch.
It's great. I mean, Puya's amazing. You gotta love Puya.
Yeah. So we were ranking bagels, and we all, I think everyone basically agreed that the everything bagel is the top bagel.
It's not. It's okay.
It's like the Avengers of bagels. It's all like
Pumpernickel's the best. Pumpernickel's the best, and I'm gonna die on that hill.
No, pumpernickel's fine. But anyway, let's stay on topic, Mark. Everything bagel, best bagel. Come on, it represents New York. It's like New York's a melting pot, right? And we have the best bagels. The everything bagel is the melting pot of the bagels. It brings all the other seeds from all their,
I respect
their backgrounds.
It tastes better,
and makes it better. Yeah. But anyway, what I do when I have everything bagels, I get like
two millennial Jews just yelling about bagels at each other.
Yeah, that's what 2020 needs. But anyway, I had a whole I buy bagels from this place actually near where my parents live in Westchester all the time, and I bring them home. I freeze them, but at the bottom of the bag you have this great mix of everything bagel seeds, and instead of buying it from Trader Joe's, I put them in a Tupperware. So if I ever get a situation where I have an underseeded bagel, or for some reason somebody makes the mistake of bringing plain bagels to my house instead of everything bagels, I could sprinkle them on the cream cheese, and now I have an everything bagel. I don't see what's wrong with that. People think it's weird. But anyway, I made a video. So it came up that I do this on Puya's stream. Then they started talking about it on RHAP, and in response to that, I made a video where I had a bagel, which was criminally underseeded. You saw the bottom of that bagel, or would it be the top of the bagel? I mean, I guess it's the top and the bottom of the bagel. Not enough seeds. It might as well have been an everything bagel pretending to be an everything bagel. Sorry, a plain bagel pretending to be an everything bagel. And
oh God, my life streams become this. This is so great.
Yeah, but so I had my Tupperware of everything bagel seeds, and my solution to having this underseeded bagel is to shake it, seeds, baby. And I said that at the end of the video, and it's become sort of a unofficial catchphrase of Rob and Akiva Need a Podcast. And Liska thinks there should be merch. And I mean, if people are interested in buying seeds, baby merch, I think that's something that I don't know. I think that's something we can make happen. I quickly on customink.com yesterday, when I saw Liska's tweet, I very, very quickly designed a shirt, which is a little baby sitting on a bagel. And seeds baby was in the hole of the bagel.
Very, very funny stuff. Let's see something. Okay, so this is important. I agree.
Jared's wrong. Jared is wrong. I love Jared, but he's wrong.
That's right. I got another question from A-Rod Blackster asks, who is the most overrated Yankee ever, and why is it Derek Jeter?
So a lot of people have this take that Derek Jeter is overrated. And I think when you look at Derek Jeter's advanced stats, especially some of his fielding stats, it doesn't necessarily warrant the fact that he is one of the most beloved players of all time. But I think when you look at Derek Jeter's career, you have to look at what he did in the playoffs, in big games, and the fact that he was the captain of the New York Yankees. And I mean, he was the captain. He wasn't the captain for all 5 of the championships that he won, but he did win 5 championships as one of the leaders of the team, as part of the core 4, which I really think should be the core 5, because I think Bernie Williams gets overlooked. If we're talking about Yankees that aren't rated correctly, I think Bernie Williams should get more love from people who aren't Yankee fans. Like, I don't think he's a Hall of Famer, but I do think that he gets overlooked. It should be the Fab 5 and not the core 4. But Derek Jeter, yeah, he lacked range for a shortstop. when you look at the plays that he made in big spots, such as the foot play against the Oakland A's in the playoffs, the ALDS to nab Jeremy Giambi, Jason Giambi's brother, and the play that he made against the Red Sox, I believe it was 2003, when it was like the 12th, 13th inning or something. He made a play where he dove over the stands and caught the ball. He was more of a clutch fielder than he was a great shortstop. He's not a great defensive shortstop. We know that. But he was always a clutch hitter. He was a reliable hitter. He has the most hits in Yankees history. So I don't think that Derek Jeter's an overrated Yankee necessarily. I think that he is a correctly very highly rated Yankee and should have been a unanimous Hall of Famer, but is a first ballot Hall of Famer. So who cares? I don't care about the stupid people who didn't vote for him.
Sorry about that. A-Red Laxer.
A-Rod, come on.
And another question that I think you might have seen, but it's important to ask. David Holdsworth asks, what are you hiding underneath that beard there, Jordan? I
mean, my beard is pretty short right now. It's fairly trimmed. I don't think I'm hiding anything there. When my beard has been longer, I used to have a map to a treasure chest that I didn't end up finding it, but that's okay.
Google, right?
Yeah. What's hiding under your beard, Mark? I think this question should be more for you because I don't have a beard at all.
Beardless, though. I mean, you have seen that. It's just a lot of sadness and probably candy. Probably a couple peanut butter M&Ms. Definitely like a chip or two. Maybe some Dr. Pepper leftovers. I don't know. So
Jared Latzer brings up an important thing in the chat. Tom Seaver, great Mets pitcher, should have been unanimous. I agree. I hate the whole this player. Yeah, okay. When you have these Hall of Fame voters, to me, first ballot, second, I don't really care about what year you get into the Hall of Fame. To me, you're either a Hall of Famer or you're not a Hall of Famer. If I were a Hall of Fame voter and I thought someone deserved to be in the Hall of Fame, I would vote them in, and I would be mad at anyone who didn't vote them in. There's no reason that anyone should be voting against a Derek Jeter or a Tom Seaver to go into the Hall of Fame. It's ridiculous. Everyone knows they're Hall of Famers. Vote them in. I don't like this whole first ballot versus like fourth ballot thing. If someone should be in, they should be in.
Nice. Yeah. So what are you hiding behind your beard?
I am hiding a hidden immunity idol, and that could be used in any Survivor game I decide to play. Don't let Adam Klein know that, or else he's going to try to like gank it out. And I won't. Yeah. But cool. Anything else you want to talk about before we wrap up? I think we haven't covered everything, but we've covered a lot. You can talk about anything you want. I mean, I knew we were going to talk about Survivor. I knew we were going to talk about a little bit about me, which we did. Anything that you want to share? I mean, I think we answered a lot of questions. We talked about bagels. I think the last. I can't remember the last time I was ever on like either a podcast or like a Zoom call where bagels didn't come up. I think I just like talking about bagels. I'm serious. When I have them in my house, I eat them like basically every day for breakfast. If I buy a dozen bagels, they're gone 12 days later. I am a big bagel person. Like I don't keep them around, but like whenever I have a bagel, I'm very, very happy. I think you'll enjoy this question. Who is the most overrated Yankee? I would say that the most overrated Yankee, if I could think of a Yankee, I'm sure you could go back historically and look at the answer to this question. I think a recent overrated Yankee was potentially Bobby Abreu. Yes, he was a really good on-base guy, but I feel like he didn't live up to the hype when the Yankees brought him in. I like Bobby Abreu. He's a good player, but he had lost a lot of speed from earlier in his career. He wasn't as clutch of a player as you would have liked him to be in the big moments, which is really, I think, the most important thing you could be as a baseball player. So I would say Bobby Abreu. No shade to him. He's probably not watching. But that would be my I don't know if he's the most overrated Yankee, but I think he is maybe an overrated Yankee. Like for me with baseball, I watch baseball when I'm at the stadium. Otherwise, yeah. But yeah, I have a question. I don't know if you can answer. Since Survivor is not coming back anytime super soon, are you gonna be in any off-season type of podcasts for RHAP? I mean, potentially, like we said, potentially some of the Mafia stuff. I mean, there isn't really anything scheduled yet that I'm going to be doing, but I have some ideas. They're not like fully formed ideas that I'm going to share, but I have been thinking of a couple things that I might want to podcast about, and maybe they'll come to fruition, and maybe they won't.
Well, I'd be happy if like you appear like in Sequester coverage. I know that you commentated on Sequester games before and played Sequester before. That might be cool.
Yeah, I mean, if I was asked to come on as a guest, I mean, I would definitely I wouldn't say no.
But yeah, and for those who don't know, they just announced the cast for season 4 fully for Sequester with Brent Wolgamott, who we knew about, but like Sharen's on it, my friend Muna's on it, like a lot, like
I was happy to see Sharina and Brent both on the cast, and then there were people that I don't know that well, but I do recognize them from watching Sequester games, like Muna, and I think there's someone from the Survivor class of 2020. I forgot who it was.
Jacob Jones, right?
Yes, that's who it is. Yeah, and I saw he was on it, so that's cool. More RHAP on the season. The more the better. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
But yeah, I also want to say thank you for like we never talked about this like on air, but like I remember right after Apples and Honey Sequester game, you called me like as soon as like the game ended to like see how I was doing because that as much as I love that game, the ending for me sucked.
Well, look, I mean, you played a really good game, and you were dragged, right?
That was dragged. That
so I mean, it's like at that point, I thought that if you went to the end, you were going to win. And there's really, the person dragging is out of the game. It's not like you even really did anything wrong strategically. They took you out, and that's the rules. Like I'm not going to dispute the rules. like some people.
I got my win the following week. It's okay. It's like, and also like that is. It's everything. Like when I'm looking at my whole Sequester career, as it might actually be over, we don't know. But like that is my best game, Apples and Honey, and then Tumble. But that's how that is. But yeah, I want to say thank you so much for coming on. Like I know it's semi short notice.
I mean, it was a couple. When did you call me? Like yes, was it yesterday? It feels like 3 days ago. Like I mean, these days, like I said at the start, this thing that. And I think this is sort of for everyone. Time is so weird these days. Like I feel like the days are really long, the weeks are really long, but then I remember things from before the pandemic, and it doesn't feel like that long ago. But things at the beginning of the pandemic feel like 6 years ago.
Like I distinctly remember sitting in Stone Creek, finding out that Tom Hanks has COVID.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was the last night at Stone Creek for all of us.
Yeah, and
that was the night that they also shut down the NBA. And we found out that a couple players on the Utah Jazz tested positive, and Trump gave his Oval Office speech talking about the pandemic, which I wish he had taken more seriously. but
I'm sure to a certain extent he does too. But I want to bring up your how to follow you because you tweet well and fairly often. Any other way that you want people to follow you?
I mean, I have an Instagram, which is also at Jordan Kalish. I very rarely use it. It's mostly pictures of my dog and food. And then when I used to go to live sporting events, I would post those as well. But at Jordan Kalish on Twitter is the best way to follow me. If you're someone who is interested in, like we play, so we were talking about RHAP Mafia, and we were talking about when we used to play Mafia in person. I've also hosted a bunch of Mafia games just like amongst friends and people that I know from the RHAP community or people I know through people in the RHAP community, and we play on Zoom. If you're interested in playing, you can reach out to me on Facebook or Twitter, and I'll add you to the Facebook group. The games haven't been as common as they used to be. Like during the summer, we were playing once or twice a week.
Yeah.
And now it's,
it's like I was watching Sequester every day. So
yeah. But especially like, I think with the election and the fact that more people are either back to work or more people working in person than there were over the summer. I think that the games have sort of slowed down a little bit, but when we play, it's still a lot of fun. So if you're interested in playing Mafia, whether you've played before or haven't played before, reach out to me.
And you'll get schooled by Ali Lasher.
Sure, you get to play with a lot of sometimes survivors show up. We've had survivors show up. Karishma's played, Lyrsa's played, Eliza Orleans has played, Rob. So sometimes you get to play Mafia with survivor contestants or RHAP hosts like Kirsten or Puya or Ali. Liana plays. So yeah, it's a fun time.
Cool. You just reminded me of a banner I had to make because I'm getting ready to do my promotional stuff. On Friday we have our next show. It's gonna be our Brant Steele Day. Jordan, as usual, would you like to be a guest on it this week?
On Friday.
All I need is just your permission to use your photo and your name.
Oh, it's just my photo and name? Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome.
I'm giving you carte blanche permission whenever you want to use my name for a Brant Steele. I'm not sure if I'd be available to watch on Friday, but I might be able to.
You'll be able to see it on YouTube afterwards.
Okay, cool. Yeah, use my face. Oh, that sounds weird. But you can use my picture and my name.
Cool. Yeah, no, it's always fun. I don't know what season we're going to do yet, but we're going to do a good season as we always want to do a good season of that. Sorry, I'm just bantering while I write a banner that I forgot to make. And then coming up on Monday, we have our next Miscellaneous Monday, which was a lot of fun this week. Send in questions. If you want to be a guest, people let me know. Tell me about something that you liked that you watched recently or experienced recently. I just had our friend MJC, Michael J. Clark, we'll talk about Ted Lasso, a show that I definitely really want to watch. I don't have Apple TV, but I might subscribe for a month just to watch it. And then you can send me questions or whatever. And if people want to do some theater thing, I don't know, I'll host it. We'll figure it out. It's a Miscellaneous Monday for a reason.
Yeah, I hear MJC is a Steelers fan now because the Patriots aren't good anymore. But he's
a Patriots fan. It's so insane to me. But I don't watch professional football. I only watch basketball. But yeah.
Are you still a LeBron guy? I mean, I know you're.
I'm always a LeBron guy. I've always been a LeBron guy.
I was happy that LeBron got a
championship. It was really weird because for me, I will always cheer for my Miami Heat first, and then etc. players. So that doesn't change. So this finals when it was the Heat versus Lakers. Heat and then
of course I knew obviously you're a Heat fan, you're rooting for the Heat, but I know that there are certain Cavs fans who don't root for LeBron anymore, certain Heat fans that don't root for LeBron anymore, and it's hard for me to put myself in that spot because I'm I guess a Knick fan, but I'm more just a fan of I like watching some playoff basketball, more of a March Madness fan when it comes to basketball anyway.
I love March Madness, yeah.
I like to coach basketball. But I've always liked LeBron James. I've always respected him. I think he's a great guy. I think he's one of the best people in sports.
Yeah.
And obviously has been, the most dominant player. And you can tell by the fact that his teams are always in the finals and he often wins them. So I do like LeBron James. I wish he was on a team that I liked, but I have nothing against the Lakers, the Cavs, or the Heat. So,
I mean, I understand Cavs fans being upset at LeBron, but also it's he played most of he did what he wanted to do for you guys and stuff for himself. That's where my brain is on all that type of situation.
Yeah. And look, Cleveland, the city of Cleveland, besides that one championship that he won with them, I mean, that city hasn't had a championship except for that one. So I think they should be at least a little grateful that they brought home that championship. And there's no way to do it.
He got us too.
He got you guys too, and he's gotten the Lakers one now. And my guess would be one and counting. You never know.
Never know. That's exciting about basketball. I fucking love basketball. It's by far the best sport, and I love how the NBA handled COVID. It's the only sport. It's the only league that I feel like has handled it well.
Well, the NHL did the bubble too. I feel like they handled it well.
They did, yeah.
Yeah, I would rank basketball as my third favorite sport, but definitely first in handling COVID. My other two favorite sports have probably been the worst in handling COVID, MLB and NHL.
MLB is better than NFL, though. So.
Yeah, football's not doing a great job. MLB had some issues at the beginning of the season mainly. And then end of the season, Justin Turner's on the field with a positive COVID diagnosis, which they didn't realize until the middle of the game. And then he's out. The Dodgers win the World Series. And I understand wanting to celebrate with your teammates. That's got to be the best feeling in the world. But there's no, it's insane that he was back on the field after getting a positive COVID diagnosis celebrating.
Yeah. And then, as you saw already, Marketing Meets World is back. We returned this week. It was just me this episode. But next week, I got a guest again, Rachel Nielsen, my girlfriend, whom I adore. We'll be discussing episode 1, season 1, episode 18. It's a Wonderful Night. And this is a guest I'm very excited about. I've been working on trying to get this guest for a while for next week, Wednesday night at 8 p.m. And we're going to be talking Survivor, life, and etc. She'll be my third Survivor contestant on the show because I had Tony Tebbett from Survivor South Africa, whom I adore, and Lisa Torres from D vs. Goliath, who's literally one of my favorite underrated players in the history of Survivor.
And if you haven't seen Tony's season, Survivor South Africa season 6, you got to watch it. It is a top tier Survivor season.
I would put that up there honestly with like Cagayan.
I mean, I don't know if I go that high, but it's definitely by far my favorite international. I think if it were an American Survivor season, it would be in my top 10, which at this point is a top quarter season. That's pretty high.
No, we'll also keep in mind Cagayan's not my favorite season.
Oh, okay.
I love the characters of Cagayan, and like what I love about Survivor South Africa season 6 is like how insanely funny it is to watch people like Martinez and like Tony and other people like just like exist in that island together.
Oh yeah, Martinez is nuts. Like him writing that letter is one of the, and I won't spoil exactly what it was, but there's a character named Martinez, and he writes a letter at some point. I won't say what it was, but that's one of the craziest and funniest things I've ever seen on Survivor.
To give an idea what Martinez is the guy that when you see everyone like riding on the boat to the island, he's in the suit.
Mm-hmm.
So that's important to know. But like, I think Survivor South Africa is my favorite of all the international Survivor seasons, personally. Although, like series, not seasons, because I love 7 also. I gotta finish watching New Zealand, especially now that I've become friends with someone on that season. So,
oh, really cool.
Yeah, but you guys can follow me also on Twitter at MarkLevy85. Thank you so much, Jordan, for doing this.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is a lot of fun, and anytime.
Yeah, I'll see you guys next time on Friday. And
Bye, guys.
Thursday. Bye.